in the call, and I will thank you for recording. Deanna's also in the call, and she will introduce herself also. But so basically, this session will be about Givify, which is a new fundraising proposition that we are currently developing within UNHCR. Basically, I will touch upon it a little bit later, but it will be a lot of unpacking around the methodology and not just like this is the end result. So we really want to take you on this innovation journey with us. But before I hand over to Diana, my name is Claudia. I work as Fundraising Innovation Officer at UNHCR HQ, and I'm working in Diana's team. So Diana, quickly moving over to you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Yeah, I'm Diana Ruano, and I'm heading up fundraising innovation at UNHCR here in Copenhagen, and really happy to be sharing our learnings. And like Claudia says, I think probably for the people on this call, the making of is probably more interesting than the product itself. So hopefully you guys will find this helpful and interesting. Thanks,
Yeah,
Claudia.
but you will, thank you, and you will get a bit of both, so don't worry. But we will really unpack the methodology. So moving on to the next slide, like we already are saying, this is really about the journey of innovation, and that it's not about the end result. It's really about the process of learning and testing. So really see this as like a little sneak peek behind the scenes. And basically, we hope that this way of working could also inspire and hopefully also help you to start developing new propositions. So basically, for Givify, with every innovation methodology, like what problem are we trying to solve? So basically, a lot of major NGOs have a lot of issues with aging donors. They have a hard time cracking the code of interacting with young millennials, Gen Z, and we also need to grow our presence with this audience to make sure that we look at our long-term sustainability. I actually heard a while back a quote that even though right now these audiences might not be the most interesting donors when it comes to income and lifetime value yet, the thing is that they really influence the way that we interact on our social medias with technology. So actually they do really have a large influencing factor on everyone that we interact with. And as a result, it's really important to also take it in consideration. So number two, the problem that we're trying to solve is basically the lack of appeal to this audience about a regular giving model. So basically they get little dopamine hits and they're really not very happy when they just do the traditional direct debit credit card donation. And then it will be followed up by traditional communications. Basically the same way that you interact with your grandma is also the same way that we interact with this audience. And they definitely have different needs. So we should take that in consideration. Therefore, we really want to have a stronger donor experience. So therefore, that should be incremental. We really should innovate, try to do a test and test this, experiment, and really make sure that we really take in consideration the social media landscape, but also the digital landscape that I just mentioned. So what is Givify? And I really want to show you kind of like how we started, because actually the first name was Givify, and just this shows also the way that we're working. And basically for those that are not aware of it, this was part of our reimagining fundraising submission. The seed funding that we will get that we got from Twilio, and we actually were one of the awardees for this one. And this was something that was developed by a couple of our great colleagues within UNHCR. So I really want to say this is not our brainchild, but we have started to treat it as our own child because we also became very much involved with it. But basically the idea behind it was subscribe instead of donate. There's so many subscriptions that we have nowadays, and we believe that basically a subtle change would actually really help in attracting the younger generations. A whole thing that we also really wanted to establish and further understand is that we need to communicate in a different way. And I already slightly touched upon in the last slide, but also they also really want to see like less dramatic appeals. They want to have different language, more about, I heard a very great quote yesterday, it's not about empowering, but powering refugees. So it should be more diverse and yeah, instead of just let's donate on impact and that's it. And also one thing that's a key element is that they really want to be part of a community. Again, these were kind of how do you say that, like underbelly feelings, and this had to be validated. So for that, I really want to bring you kind of like through our approach. And I think every organization or everyone that works in innovation has some type of methodology that looks like this. I mean, in the end, it's all lean design thinking, building MVPs. But basically, what we really wanted to do is like an ongoing approach where we could continue refining and iterating the way that we're working. So I really don't want to go, I'm not going to give you like a theory class on how this way work, but basically just to say it in a nutshell is you find a problem. It's kind of like what I started with in this presentation as well. Then you kind of want to validate your problem. You really want to understand the audiences that are impacted by the problem. And then you kind of like start finding solutions and ideas. And then basically you want to test, and instead of building like a full product, you want to make a small test. You want to make sure that instead of spending, I don't know, 1 million on like a full-blown proposition that you have not validated, you really want to make sure that you can kind of like almost unpack the test and of this proposition, and basically then start validating, okay, with small increments, we really want to see, does this work? Does this resonate? And this is kind of like how this whole presentation is being set up. Of course, then after building the MVP, you want to test it. Again, reiterating almost, redoing this process. And hopefully, if results are really good, then you have all your information you really want to launch this final product or proposition. So basically, this is kind of like, we call it our internal goal pen methodology. But again, there are so many ways of definitions for this methodology. So like I already said, part of our approach is really using an agile de-risking approach. So really it's test, learn, and adapt. And what we have done for this, I kind of like developed it in 5 phases. So basically making sure that at every phase we were able to gather insights from our target audiences, and based on that kind of like build further to go into that MVP, but also after the MVP, how do we go from there? So phase 1 are kind of like the focus group. These were pre-reimagining fundraising submission. Then there was the phase 2, which is kind of like an external UX testing with a tool called Lisna. Phase 3 was basically finding markets and audiences to test with. Phase 4 was actually a pilot, just to see like how much work there's already before that to making that happen. And then phase 5 is basically our post-pilot feedback and preparations for our 2.0. So we're not even talking about, okay, now we're going to launch the full-blown product. We're just going to iterate another round and test more. So I will also take a breath because I'm talking very fast. And basically phase 1 was the focus group pre-reimagining fundraising submission. So what we basically did was we had this underbelly feeling. We wanted to make sure that we develop something that resonates with this audience. So we actually went out to them and we started to ask them, like, what do you think about this idea? What are your initial impressions? What are kind of like the problems and needs that you have? And we actually did that very easy with just young colleagues and interns that met the Gen Z age criteria. And we did that just through virtual focus groups. So just asking them questions and just get that information going. And some of the key insights that we got is that, again, because we're validating, because maybe even if we do have the awareness or understanding, we cannot just say, oh, I think, or my donors this, or my audience that, if we cannot validate with data. And even though this is just a small component, it's good to have these insights. So basically, they validated our assumptions around that the current communications do not resonate with them, especially for the age groups. They want to become part of a movement. And another thing that was very key is that they wanted to be in control of their payment, their donation, their subscription. So that was basically phase 1. And now I have like a very busy slide, but again, just really want to show you kind of like, again, the process, how we kind of like went about this. So basically for phase 2, after, we got the seed funding awarded, we were very happy. And then it was about, okay, next steps, because we have just these underbelly feelings and we have a couple of ideas of what we want to test and what we want to launch. But again, we need to have it validated. So we tested this proposition to get a representative view of the popularity of the ideas and its key features. So what you can see here on the right, and again, just want to show you also how easy it is to do. This is not even a final product. I hope you can see my arrow, but we just made something it was like Miro and a little bit of Canva, and we just made, okay, we think that it should look like this. And this was just, we also told the audience, this is just a smoke screen, this is not existing, but we just really want to test, does even a subscription model, does it even, resonate with you? Do you like that? And we didn't even mention that we were UNHCR. We just said we were an international charity, INGO, nothing basically mentioning that could, like, you could say, okay, this is UNHCR asking the questions to avoid getting some type of biased answers. So basically for the first test, this was just basically asking, does this even resonate? What do you like? What should be kind of like key features? And based on that, we actually did a second test. And this is basically the second image you see here. You can already see it's a little bit more extended and has more information. And in here, we already implemented kind of the, okay, so what are the key features? And we want to dissect it. We really want to understand, okay, so for you, flexible donations are very important. So what does that exist of? Community, what does a community mean to you? What do you like about this type of content? What is it that you want to learn? So really, we're just unpacking. And again, it was just gaining more insights and more data. And we did that through the Listna platform. Listna is just a tool. Again, I don't have any any affiliation with Listna, and not being paid or whatever, but it was just like very, very well and easy to set up. And the great thing as well is that we tested this with about 1,000 people across the age group. So we got quite some very well insights. And the good thing about this as well, you only need about 270 respondents per country to get a quote unquote representative sample. And like I already said, it's easy to set up. And I think the great thing as well is that within 48 hours, you will already get the results. So it was like a very, if you really want to work in a sprint way or you can get your results very fast. And with those learnings, you can kind of go into the next phase. So what we saw here is, yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in. I think, can you just go back 1 second? I think just to add, the other part that's really interesting, exactly like Claudia said, we don't even mention UNHCR, and you can see that on this in the mock-up. However, one of the questions that we ask as part of the Listna questionnaire is, which of these causes do you support? And of course, one of them is the refugee cause. So the beautiful thing about Listna is that then you can actually filter all of the results with the people that do have an affinity to the refugee cause, or with the people that have. So the beauty is that we can actually indirectly get the information for people that are more likely to support a cause like UNHCR without, like Claudia was saying, affecting sort of the mock-up or putting any biases into the mock-up. Sorry,
yeah, thank you so much for adding, Deanna. I think also to add, basically, you could also even filter on those that said that were interested, or like those that and basically only see the answers they gave. So basically, there was a lot of filtering that Listna also allowed for, so you could really find out of these audiences among the refugee lovers to give it a name, they really like it, so it was really great platform to work with. So a couple of things that we have learned there, and I think this is great just for the sector as well to get kind of like have this data validated. And again, this is just from 2 countries and over 1,000 respondents, but basically a couple of the favorite features are around the impact of donations. So data, the statistics, that was something that was, I think, quite interesting. Next to human interest stories, I really liked just getting hard data and statistics, basically, being able to learn more about the beneficiary of their donation. Another aspect is that they really wanted to be part of a community. So again, that was being validated in here. So the ability to invite friends and family, but also being able to see who else supports the same cause and to communicate with them. Another thing is, and it's kind of like adding to the data and statistics, is they would really wanted to learn more about the cause, and basically also, just getting more inside information about that. And again, this kind of like in line with the part of being part of a community, sharing the support. So basically, tools and content that you can share and engage with your friends or family. and also very bite-sized content that is very, very well appreciated. So this was basically phase 2. So as you can see, we had a lot of data, a lot of insights. So then we had to go to phase 3, which was basically, okay, now we want to test this in the markets. And how are we going to do that? And who's going to be part of it? And I already wanted to give you a little bit a sneak peek. This was also the part where we started to think about, okay, these were the kind of like the hero features. So what is the type of content that we can develop based on it? What is already there that we can kind of maybe repurpose for a younger audience? What should, for example, the sign up page look like? All those type of elements were also kind of starting to develop in the background and when we were in this phase. So for this, when we were reaching out to markets, we really wanted to make sure that we could test this with potential audiences and to get a diverse feedback. And this, should be really, we really want to make distinction between kind of like the a little bit more colder and hot or warmer audiences. So what we did was actually threefold. One thing was actually sending an email to our colleagues and basically asking colleagues that met the age requirements to sign up for a Givify lab. And as a result, we had quite some colleagues that were very much interested to be part of this. Another thing that we did was we had a big list of existing leads from our basically global donor database. And we also asked them to sign up and to be part of the project. So that was another group. And then one thing that we really wanted to also test was the colder audiences. So we used another tool called Prolific. And basically, we also invited the audience to join this pilot and also to make sure, and they were from the UK, to really get their feedback. And this was actually a paid platform. So this audience would get paid to be part of the full projects. And the reason that we actually opted to do this was to really make sure that we would get high quality feedback at the end of the pilot that we could really use to further iterate our proposition. And I think one of the interesting insights in this process was that it was really good to have this combination, but also that when we reached out to, for example, our colleagues, but also the hot leads, basically, they were really interested in participating and were almost a little bit sad that they were not meeting the age requirement. So this also gave us quite some interesting insights to maybe expand it to an older audiences or use it for other things in future. So that was really, really great to see in this process. So then we're ending up at phase number 4. So there are 5, so please bear with me. So phase 4 was our pilot. And we decided to do an 8-week pilot from August 16th till October 24th. And we're actually still busy with gathering a lot of insights, but we already can show you quite some exciting things. And in the end, we had 82 participants. Again, as you can see, it doesn't have to be big. We're just trying to really get more insights, more data, more validation, more tips and tricks, more improvements. So it was just really setting it up like that. So one of the learning objectives for the pilot was we really need to understand the audience better. We need to find, does the proposition resonate? Is it rewarding? And then basically how will we measure that? So basically the demographics of the people that sign up, but also we would send them a feedback form at the end of the pilot survey so that we could really get those inside learnings from them. Then another aspect that we really wanted to test as well was the content. And basically what we mentioned as well, the hero features earlier, we really want to test different type of contents and formats. And we really made like almost a content planner that in this week, we really wanted to test this and this. And for example, long form content versus a short form content, or maybe like an audio or a video, just making sure that we will get a good insight of what really resonates. And also like what is the right, basically what we could do there is kind of like looking at the clicks and downloads, basically the engagement on the platform. And also we really wanted to understand what is the right frequency, even though the audience knew that they signed up for a 8-week pilot. We also wanted to understand like what frequency was actually preferred. Should we send every day, 2 times a day? Should we have more intervals? So basically, also that was very insightful for us to kind of like learn. And what we did there was also return visit rates to the website to measure that, the engagement over time, and also the view and download rates on the website. And we also had a hotjar to see where they would navigate on the website. So what was then kind of like this test? What was the pilot? So basically, you had three key elements. So element one was the donation page, the sign up page. And basically, this is where everyone would sign up. And what we really wanted to make sure of is that it was kind of like very easy. You sign up and you need to join our community. Then we had another important element because, again, I think a lot of in our organizations we're running into a lot of like understaffing or like resource issues. But one thing about really controlling the donation was something that we could not yet test and implement. And we also wanted to really make a business case to see, does it even matter and does it make sense to invest in something like that? So we actually developed a prototype. So this was just a beta website where basically we hosted the content, and we also had some other elements to basically have a future user experience. And then the community, again, we really are trying to be very hands-on because we want to just test, and it's not about how eloquent it is, or it's just really about we want to get the data in. So we actually launched a WhatsApp community, and this was managed by our team, and we made sure that we delivered the comms and content, and that basically there was interaction in the group. So I just want to give you a small sneak peek of what did it look like. And I think one thing that I really want to highlight is that immediately interaction that you would have with your subscribers. And it just gave so much insights and into data, into what is working. And because we were actually managing it ourselves, we could ask questions. We could actually see, as the amount of likes, like does a specific type of content work better. So it was really, really nice to have this, do this for the first time. So I just want to give you a small walkthrough. Again, it's just like very high over, but just to give you an impression, because it's not really about the end product, but it's about the whole process behind it. So basically what you could see here is that we just posted something in the WhatsApp, and then we really wanted to measure the amount of downloads of specific posts would get. So we developed, for example, a dinner guide, because that's something, again, from the hero features that we understood they really wanted to share stuff with family and friends. So they were actually redirected to our prototype website where we hosted the content, and they could then download the guide. So that was basically one of the elements of the prototype and the WhatsApp group. And another thing that I really want to show is, and I will show just a short video here, is kind of like this whole part around the subscription where you could almost, kind of like have control over, how it looks like. So again, just want to show you how it, and control over your donation. Apologies. So as you can also see, the way that we communicate is very in their language, in their also letting you know this is just in beta. We're just testing this. This is kind of like our prototype. Please go over it, check it. And one thing that was, I think, really interesting is that we just kind of like explain what was on there, but also the part around that donor portal, or basically where they could control their donation. Again, this was not something that was done or finished already, but basically this work you can see right now. Under my subscription, we just put a couple of those elements, and actually you could click on it. And you could basically, it was not even, you would actually get just a wall up there, and it was just saying, well, this is in beta. Can you please let us know what you like about it, what we could improve? So we really got some great insights as well. And as you can see, again, it doesn't have to be finished. It's just about testing and getting insights before launching something. So that was phase 4, and still talking about phase 4.
Just really quickly, Claudia, just to add a piece on that one. I think the other part that's super interesting, Claudia was talking about how we had this sort of content calendar, which actually really helped us sort of map and have that big picture and make sure that we were testing, different formats, different lengths, etc. But the beauty of all this, and I remember it wasn't even in our content calendar, but all of a sudden we were seeing the refugee Olympic team, for example.
Yeah.
It was growing. It was in the middle of the Olympics. Then we had the Paralympic team. So it was really cool to actually just be like, okay, let's test this, let's pivot. Let's, we'll take out, two of the things that we had planned, quote unquote. We're going to substitute them for things that is super relevant. And then, spoiler alert, it turned out to be one of the ones that had the most engagement. So I think that's one of the beautiful parts of this type of pilot, is that it's sort of quick, it's agile, you can and pivot to the things that are happening in the moment.
Exactly. Yeah. And thank you so much for adding. I think that was also very exciting. Like, oh, wait, there's something we should really, test this with the group. And, we did that, I think, on an ongoing basis. I think every week we had the content calendar, but there were always new things. And indeed, it was great to see also the interaction on those. So thank you so much for that, Deanna. So basically then after the pilot, now what? So what we did, and we really want to make sure to get all the data and insights in, is actually what's setting up. And before, basically at the end, what we did was, next to kind of tracking the likes, the interactions on our posts in the community, was also sometimes opening up site groups where we would ask questions, or they could ask us questions. So it was really making sure that we could also have a bit of interaction with them. And that was also right now the way that WhatsApp was being set up, is like we were kind of pushing content, and there was not, besides liking or adding an emoji, there was not another way that the audience could interact with us. They could only do that when you would open up side chats and go from there. But regardless, it gave us quite some great insights in terms of things that were working and that were not working. And one thing that we also did at the end was going over the results of the prototype that we got, like the feedback form, the Hotjar, looking at the number of clicks and downloads of, for example, the content that we put up there. We also sent a final survey to the group that came, basically to everyone, but specifically a very detailed one to the prolific audience. And then what we're also doing right now, and we're actually wrapping that up this afternoon, is also the colleagues that were part of our Givify lab. We're holding now focus group with them and just asking them, like, what worked for you? What did you like? So we're really able to unpack. And this is also based on the results of their survey, to really ask them, like, so can you maybe elaborate, or do you have any suggestions? Or so it's really great that we have so many kind of like interactions and ways of validating and getting data in. So I think what will be nice, though, is to share a little bit of the things that we have learned. And this is more kind of in general about Givify. And I think one thing that was really nice to hear is that I think about 80% really, 87% really like Givify. I think it was actually a higher number, but basically what you can see here on the screen are a couple of feedback that we got through our form. So I don't want to read them all out, but I would just, read a couple of them out. It's like, I really enjoyed taking part. I found the information and the discussions around some topics very interesting, and I feel I learned a lot. They really like this new approach. It was very informative. And also, it was really great to get a new view on the refugee crisis and make me look into the issues more. So this is really why people kind of like enjoyed taking part. So it really gave them this kind of new experience that they have not experienced before. One thing that, we also got back, because we were testing so much content and it was so much happening in the world. And then indeed the Paralympics came on. We were sending quite some messages across these eight weeks. And so it could be sometimes a little bit overwhelming for them. And one thing was, what they also said is that it was very informative, but I have a very short attention span. So please keep it to very short type of content. And also one thing was that it was very, very long. And we also saw that over the pilot phase. In the beginning, a lot of interaction. And then in the end, it actually became less, which of course makes sense. And of course, people also knew that they were signing up for just 8 weeks. So the interest went down a little bit, but again, they really like being part of the pilot. So a couple of quotes from our survey. So 87% would like to sign up. They really would like to find out more, and they really like this way because you got real-time update, and sometimes it's really hard to follow the news. They actually, and I think that was quite interesting for us as well. They really felt part of the community and of a community, and even for them, just seeing other people reacting to to messages or asking questions or completing the polls already made them feel that they were part of the community. So that was quite interesting to get that learning. Um, of course, not surprising, but content directly from refugees were most engaging. So we really also made sure to test the content that we were saying, like, hello, Givifiers from refugees from the field. So it really felt that they were making an impact and they were in touch with these refugees. We also tried to test a little bit around webinars and longer form content, but they really did not like that. And we actually canceled, again, it's real time, so you can pivot as we go, but we had a very interesting webinar lined up with one of our colleagues, and basically there was not enough interest and not enough signups. And we actually communicated like, hey, because of the low sign-up rates, we actually are canceling this one. And thank you for that. Like, we were testing it, and it was really interesting to also be so open and to communicate with them. And one thing again was that they also saw it as a very innovative way of seeing their impact. So also, it's not all glitters and gold. So a couple of other things that came out was they really liked WhatsApp, but there was a little bit the issue around privacy and security. One of the things with creating groups is that you can see other people's phone numbers, so it's not anonymous. And there's a risk of, for example, people contacting each other outside of the group. Also, they had the desire, they really felt part of the community, but they really would have liked to also communicate with other Givifiers in a monitored environment. And another thing was they really liked the content. And again, it's kind of like the limitations of the WhatsApp platform. That's why we also developed the prototype. But if you do a community like that, you cannot share any of your messages or your posts. So, and I really would have loved to actually share the content with others. And this is something that we also saw being validated in the focus group we had after. So I think that's really interesting as well to keep that in consideration. So yeah, we actually learned quite a lot. There's a lot of data, a lot of things for looking ahead. And as we said at the beginning, for us, it's not about the final product yet. It's really about, okay, how can we learn from this? How can we optimize and really make sure that we develop a proposition that is really resonating with this audience? So we're looking ahead for Givify 2.0. And one of the things that we're really looking into is also scalability. So expansion into new markets and languages. Right now, it was very Anglo-Saxon focused and everything was in English. Then, of course, we were testing so many features. So we're taking all these learnings into consideration and try to optimize for 2.0. And we also want to see if there's interest in different subscription models and what they should look like. And one of the things that we really want to look into as well is find a solution to the privacy matter, or maybe explore other community platforms to further roll out this proposition. So, and this is just 2.0. And even in the background, we're already thinking ahead for 3.0, 4.0. So it's not just that we stop there, but we're really trying to look ahead and see, okay, where is it? What is it that we need? And we will use every type of learning from this. And we keep on, actually using this methodology to further optimize and come up with that final product. So as you can see, and I think Deanna and I are always very realistic, and but we the message that we want to convey is that Givify, in a way, what it is, it's not groundbreaking. It's just that the thing is that it's also about starting. It's about using a methodology, and that's like I said in the beginning. Sometimes it's so hard to even start or to roll out or make a first MVP. Maybe in an ideal scenario, Givify should be something that's very bespoke and something separate, but we're not there yet, because if we would, I don't know, develop something that's like that, it would cost a lot of money. It would require a lot of resources, and then there could be the risk that it's not even resonating. So that's why we really love working with this methodology, and we used things that are already out there. It was just a beta website, it was just a regular donation page to sign up, it was a WhatsApp community that we made use of. So it's nothing eloquent, but just enough for us to test and to get their data in. So it's really about shifting that mentality, launching FEPs and doing things in an incremental, iterative way. So like I said, it's not about the big picture. It's really about just the mindset of test and learn and just do it. So I think that's something that we really wanted to show you about Givify. And yeah, if there are any questions, I would like open up the floor right now. But one thing I would also, in case it's crickets, we always love to prepare some questions for you. So one thing that I would also love to hear from you is, what is something from this presentation that you would like to implement in your own organization? And thank you very much.
Thanks, Claudia. I think I've been sort of looking at the chat, and of course, like Claudia's saying, feel free to raise your hand and ask or put it in the chat. There was a couple questions actually, Claudia, addressing the point about the WhatsApp community that Nikki asked, the fact that you can access the phone numbers. And I said, you actually mentioned it as well, but we did set up this WhatsApp Givify communication guidelines, and that is one of the aspects that we're exploring in the 2.0. And then Juan replied to that saying that actually Twilio offers a solution where you can keep the information confidential, and that we should check out twilio.org for special deals for nonprofits.
Thank you,
Juan. That sounds like an endorsement from
yeah, you're sure you're not getting
sponsor. And I think, but I don't know, let me just double check. I was looking, but I think the rest of the questions have been asked, but please feel free to jump in if anybody has any questions.
I have
a question.
Go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much. It was very, very well done presentation in terms of the pilot and the results so far. So thank you for spending time and prepare the presentation and sharing with us. Question is, in terms of the initial assumptions that we had for this pilot, which of them you feel that you have validated already and which are yet pending to be validated in the future?
Yeah, one of the things I think that we have really validated is the aspect around the donor portal and needing to have control over the donation. This is something that basically in every test and every question, was basically highlighted. It was very, very important. I think another aspect that we really got validated is the aspect around, around the type of content that really works well. I think one thing though is that because we only tested this with Anglo-Saxon, basic English-speaking audience, I think one of the things that we really want to validate as well is do we see the same trends across different markets, across different cultures, across different languages? So that's something that we need to further validate. But for I would say the English Anglo-Saxon markets, we do see what type of content resonates really well. And the part around impact, I think, again, I think we got some really great insights, but I do think there are some elements further to test. And there's something that we haven't shown, but we did kind of like an end of pilot wrap up, kind of like almost similar to Spotify. And ironically is that actually, and maybe that also had to do with the timing of sending out the survey versus, we could basically going through the thank you template. But what we did see here is that actually it didn't really resonate with them. Whereas, for example, being on streak, so we also communicate like, oh, you're on your 4-week streak. That resonated, for example, very, very, very well, which was like a very basic way, again, of showing the impact that they were making. So I think those things were validated. I think
Maybe
also,
just to jump in,
yeah, go ahead.
also, and it's interesting, Juan, to your question, I would also, it actually depends on the phase that we were at. So
Yeah.
for example, at the very beginning, in the LISTNA phase that Claudia spoke about, one of the assumptions that we had, for example, as a team, we thought that social influencers, for example, had to be at the core of whatever we developed. And we actually ran the LISTNA, we ran it in Singapore, so we had a broad, and we actually learned very quickly that it did not have to be one of those hero features. So that's one of the things that, again, that's the beauty of using all these platforms. I would say one that we're still need to look further for is this, the say-do gap about this live content, because we got in a lot of the focus groups and surveys that, people would be willing to pay premium so that they would have sort of live exclusive content. But then, for example, what Claudia was saying, when we offered this exclusive webinar with one of our brilliant colleagues on the field, everybody, didn't work for them, the timing too long. So we're still sort of exploring the say-do gap there. But again, that's the beauty of this format, is that you can just test and ask and everything.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you mind, Claudia, stop sharing your screen?
Yeah,
so
sure.
Okay, great. That way we can see. And sorry, because in Zoom, it doesn't say first or second. So there's two hands up. There's Nikki and Sashal, but I'm not sure who was first. So maybe Nikki shows up first in my screen, or... okay, and if not, we can go with Sashal.
Okay. Thank you so much, first of all, Claudia and Diana. I think this is fantastic. I lead corporate partnerships at Plan, and whatever I heard was super useful for us. My question is that, when you engage with this kind of an audience, do you also get a sense of which kind of thematic areas are they most interested in giving in? And are they different from the kind of, issues that the earlier traditional audiences were giving for? That is one. And second is around, as you mentioned, they'd like to be part of a movement. So like currently this week, COP is going on, which is the biggest climate conference. Do you think there's a role that they could play through the online donations in terms of strengthening voice for, supporting communities in these kind of events? Thank you.
Yeah, I can start. I think what we did see is that, and I think you already touched upon it, but climate is something that we do see amongst the younger audiences that resonates quite a lot. But of course, the refugee cause is in so many, so many areas, so many countries. It's such a broad element that we did not really see regarding that there was like a preference to a specific crisis or a specific audience. But we do see that climate is very interesting and very hot topic for this audience. And this is also something that we actually did in the first LISTNA test, was also asking them about like what type of causes you're most interested in. So we also got quite a good overview of that. But actually, the refugee cause was mentioned quite a lot. Sorry, the thing about creating a movement. Sorry, I was looking at my notes. For sure, this was also something that really came out of our focus groups. Is that not only they don't only want to support in a financial way, but they also really want to support in a non-financial way. So that was also the aspect around sharing the content. So I think one of the things that we really want to look into as well is developing, if you want to share something in the group, maybe there's something around already ready for social media so they can share that themselves. So definitely there is also another way to amplify their voices and really make sure that they really feel a bigger part of a global community.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, let's try Nikki.
Hi.
Okay, good.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. I was desperately trying to unmute. In one of the initial slides, you had noted that the audience that participated in this, you had asked colleagues that fit within that age bracket if they would like to participate, and you had some hand raisers, which was fabulous. Do you know of the total participants that you had for the pilot, about which percentage ended up being external participants?
Yeah. Yeah, we had that. Yeah, we had a very clear. I don't know right now the numbers by heart, but definitely we knew like the cold. We used the cold versus the warm audiences, but we definitely had a clear distinction, and the majority of the group were actually people coming in as the cold audience. But we also had, I think, about 25% that were our colleagues.
That's great. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? I'm looking at the chat. Anything else? All right.
All right. I think then we just the last opportunity. And if not, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to Diana and myself. We're more than happy to answer any other questions you might have. And I think I can speak on behalf of the both of us for thank you for attending this session, and thank you so much for the questions, and hopefully it was very, very helpful for you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.